It's a great pleasure to be here. It's like coming back home. I lived here for 14 years and made some very nice friends, and it's nice to see some of them here. It's nice to come back home and to see some friendly faces, people I've met a long time ago and haven't been in touch with for a while. But anyway, today I'm here to share with you what I understand about my grandfather's philosophy of nonviolence and why it is so important today. Before I start, I would like to invite all of you to pair up with the person sitting next to you. And you have a partner? Get a partner sitting next to you. I'd like one member of the partnership. Hello. I didn't ask you to talk. I said just pair up. I want one member of the partnership to make a tight fist and imagine that you have the world's most precious diamond in the fist. And I'd like the other member to open the fist. Okay, thank you. Now tell me very honestly, how many of you asked the other person to open the fist? You see how violent we are. And yet if I ask you, you will swear that you are not violent because you don't fight. But violence takes various different forms, and we have to be conscious of all those different forms. I learned about this from my grandfather when I was growing up, and I had the privilege of living with him for about a couple of years at the age of 12, between the age of 12 and 14. And one day I remember coming back from school. I had a little pencil in my hands about 3 inches long, and I thought to myself, I was a 12-year-old, I said, I deserve a better pencil. This is too small for me to use. And I just threw the pencil away because I was so sure that grandfather would give me a new pencil when I asked him for one. But that evening when I met grandfather and asked him for a new pencil, instead of giving me one, he subjected me to a lot of questions. He wanted to know how the pencil became small and where did I throw it away and why did I throw it away, and on and on. And I couldn't understand why he was making such a fuss over a little pencil until he told me to go out and look for it. And I said, you must be joking. I said, you don't expect me to look for a little pencil in the dark? It was already getting dark outside. It was after 6. And he said, oh yes, I do. Here's a flashlight. And he sent me out with a flashlight, and I spent about 2 hours searching for the pencil. And when I finally found it and brought it to him, he said, now I want you to sit here and learn 2 very important lessons. The first lesson is that even in the making of a simple thing like a pencil, we use a lot of the world's natural resources. And when we throw them away, we are throwing away the world's natural resources. And that is violence against nature. And the second lesson is that because in an affluent society we can afford to buy all these things in bulk, we overconsume the resources of the world, and because we overconsume them, we are depriving people elsewhere of these resources, and they have to live in poverty, and that is violence against humanity. And that was the first time I realized that all these little things that we do every day, consciously and unconsciously, which is, all of them are part of violence. They contribute to violence in some way or the other. To make me understand this lesson thoroughly, he made me draw a genealogical tree of violence. Just as we do a family tree, with violence as the grandparent, and physical violence and passive violence as the two branches. And every day before I went to bed, I had to examine and analyze everything that I had experienced during the day. Things that I may have done to other people, or people may have done to me, or things that I may have read about. All of that had to be analyzed and examined and put in their appropriate places on that tree. Now, physical violence is something that we all understand because we see it every day, we experience it. It's all the kinds of violence where we use physical force against one another. All the fighting and kicking and beating and murders and rapes and all the things where physical force is used against people, that goes under physical violence. But passive violence is something that we practice without even knowing it, because it's become so much a part of our life and our nature and our activities that we don't even recognize that as being violent. And the way I had to determine whether this was passive violence or not was to ask myself the simple question, if somebody were to do this to me, would I be hurt by it or would I be helped by it? And if I came to the conclusion that it would hurt me, then that would be passive violence. And when I began to do this introspection, I was amazed at how much violence I was committing every day. I filled up a whole wall in my room with acts of passive violence. The physical violence didn't grow very much because there's a limit to what you can do physically. But the passive violence grew endlessly. And that is when Grandfather explained to me the connection between the two. He said, we commit passive violence all the time, every day, consciously or unconsciously. And that generates anger in the victim. And the victim then resorts to physical violence to get justice. So it is passive violence that fuels the fire of physical violence. So logically, if we want to put out that fire of physical violence, we have to cut off the fuel supply. And since the fuel supply comes from each one of us, we have to be the change we wish to see in the world. If we don't change our attitudes, we are never going to be able to change the world. So if we are experiencing all the violence that we experience today, not only in Memphis, but all over the world, violence is growing exponentially, and people are disturbed by it. But we will not be able to control it or reduce it until we ourselves look at our own attitudes and change our attitudes. So it has to begin with our attitudes. But it's also a question of relationships. You know, when we live in a culture of violence, we have created a whole culture of violence around us, a culture that has taken over every aspect of human life. Our language has become violent, our sports is violent, our entertainment is violent, our relationships are violent, our religion is becoming violent. Everything about us is violent. And that culture of violence, to practice nonviolence, we have to change that whole culture. And that culture can be changed only when we change and when we realize that we don't want this kind of a culture of violence anymore, but we want more peace. So it's also a question of building relationships. In a culture of violence, we build relationships that are based on self-interest. We are always looking at what am I going to get from this relationship, and if I don't get anything from the relationship, why should I bother to build it? And that is a very selfish way of building relationships. In a culture of nonviolence, it is built on 4 principles of respect, understanding, acceptance, and appreciation. We have to respect ourselves and respect each other and respect our connection with all of creation. Now, a lot of people today in modern world believe that we are independent individuals and we can do whatever we like and it's nobody's business. We are not independent individuals. We are interdependent, interconnected, and interrelated. What happens to one happens to the other, and we have to recognize that and respect that. And it's only when we respect that we will understand who we are and what we are and why are we here on earth. We are not here to while away the time from birth to death, to do the same routine things every day, morning and evening, until we die. We are here for a purpose. And at the very least, the purpose for each one of us is to ensure that this world is going to be a little better by our presence when we go than it was when we came into the world. And if all of us make that determination to make a difference in this world, make it a better place for all people, then we will have a better understanding of who we are. And with that understanding, then we reach an acceptance of human beings as human beings. Today we identify people by labels. We have put so many labels on people. We have economic labels and religious labels and cultural labels and you name it, and we have a label for the person, and we identify a person by those labels. We have to remove those labels and look at each other as human beings. Whatever our color, whatever our race, whatever our beliefs, we are all here together as one big human family to make a difference in this world. So once we accept that, then we will be able to appreciate our own humanity. So these are the principles on which ideal relationships in a culture of nonviolence are built. And that, leads to the fact that as I said earlier, we have created this culture of violence that dominates everything in our lives. And that also, dominates the way we bring up our children. How is violence perpetuated? It's because in that culture of violence, we have been taught to bring up children with that kind of perspective. So every time we threaten our children with punishment for misbehaving, we are planting the first seeds of violence in their minds. Then punishment becomes the most important thing, that they learn that when somebody does something wrong, they need to be punished. Now, punishment is not justice. Punishment is revenge. Today, our whole justice system and everything is based on the fact that people do wrong things and they need to be punished and locked away. And I think that is wrong, because it's not addressing the problem of why the person did something wrong. It's just punishing the person for doing something wrong. And to justify our actions, we have very conveniently divided the people into good people and bad people. And we are constantly told that if we get rid of all the bad people, we will have a nation full of good people. But we forget that all people, good or bad, have the capacity to do good or bad things depending on what buttons are pressed. If we today, sitting here, supposedly good people, if we are faced with situations that we cannot deal with, we are going to do bad things to overcome that. So does that mean that we eliminate all of humanity because all of humanity has the potential of being bad? So we have to look at this more pragmatically and look at justice as a way of reforming people to address the problem that caused them to do this wrong and to help them overcome those problems. So I work in the prison system. I've been working for several years in the prison system in New York State. I actually started here, but it didn't quite catch up in Tennessee. And when I went to New York, I took it up again, and fortunately, I met more sympathetic superintendents and people who were willing to take a look at it very differently. And so I started a program in a prison called Groveland, and the program had a good effect. The people, the superintendent said that the violence in the prison had dropped by 70%. And, the message got to the State Department, and very soon they all came to me and asked me if I could expand the program in other prisons. And I said, okay, I will do whatever I can, because they don't have any money, so they don't even pay for my travel expenses. I have to pay out of pocket. And I said, well, considering my age and considering the fact that I have to get the money from somewhere, I will go to the prisons that are closest to me, within a 100-mile radius, so that I can travel back and forth from home. And so there are 5 prisons that we are working with. Attica is one of them, and Wendy and Auburn and so on. But the thing is that while the prisoners are accepting this very well and it's making a difference in their lives, I have now come to believe that the administrators also need to go through the program. Because they are also part of the problem, and they need to be a part of the solution. And it's a difficult thing to get the administrators to get involved in it, although they are there in the hall. When I'm working with the prisoners, they stand around the wall with their Sten guns on them, just to see that nobody misbehaves. But I hope someday that I will be able to convince them to participate in this and be more accepting of people and of ideas. But the other thing, the other program that I do there is, there's a lot of misconception between people outside and people inside. We look at these people as prisoners, we dehumanize them, and they cease to be human beings. Even when they come out of the prisons, we don't want anything to do with them. We keep them away. And sorry, I'm getting a little messy here. And so what I did was I invited people from outside to come in and have a dialogue with the prisoners inside. So we have about 20 to 25 outsiders and 20 to 25 inmates who come in and would somebody look at this? I don't know. They come and the prison hosts the event. We spend the whole day with the prisoners. At first, we begin with the chairs around the room, and so we can sit together, one prisoner and one outsider, and so on. And then we break up for lunch, and we have restaurant-type tables, tables of 4. And always 2 prisoners and 2 outsiders. And we sit and talk, and just like we are talking here. And that has had a tremendous effect, both on the people outside who realize that these are human beings and not animals or inhuman people. And people from inside realize that, there are sympathetic people outside. So it's built a good relationship between both the insiders and outsiders. And it's I think, a small step, first step in bringing about understanding between people. But basically what the prisons should be, they should be places of reform, places where people who have done something wrong get the help and the means to overcome their problems and find different ways and become contributing citizens again. And that doesn't happen at all. They are treated as animals in the prison. It's horrible to see how they are referred to. They are always referred to by numbers, not names. When we first went there with the group and we decided to have an introduction, they automatically started rattling off their numbers. And I said, I don't want your number. I don't know your numbers. I want your name. And we started shaking hands with them and acknowledging them as a person with a name. And these big, hefty guys started crying, both white and black. They started crying there, and first I was shocked. I said, did I say something wrong or do something to hurt them? And I apologized, and they said, no, there's no need for apology. You are the first person who's treated us like human beings. So far we have been just numbers here. So these are little things in our lives that we can all do to make a difference and bring about a change through small action. We sometimes get bogged down by the fact that we want to change the whole world or change the whole city or the country, but we don't have that power to do it. But we do have the power to change ourselves and change a few people around us. And we should exert that power and do whatever we can to have that ripple effect and bring about the change. So these are aspects of the philosophy of nonviolence that we all need to be concerned about and caring about. Another thing that has emerged from many years of studying this program is that we have created a society all over the world which is based on capitalism. And capitalism has led to greed, and greed has brought in all the negative aspects in human behavior. And so a lot of the problems that we face today are because of that kind of attitude. Because the greed and capitalism has divided society into those who have and those who don't have. And it has increased poverty. We keep hearing about trickle-down effect. Nothing trickles down. They have a net there to catch everything. So that's all a big myth. But the idea, when I go out and ask people, what do you mean by peace? When you say you want peace in the world, what do you mean by peace? And invariably they will tell me that they want a world where there's no war and no fighting. And I said, that's not peace. Absence of war is not peace. Peace is achieved only when we can create that harmony between people, when we can all live in harmony as human beings and as with nature. We are seeing the effects of our greed today with the climate change and global warming and all of these things that are happening. And even in our own personal daily lives, we see this happening all the time. But this is a wake-up call for us. We need to do something to change this. We can't just continue to live in this kind of mess, because the ultimate end to this is total annihilation. And we don't want that to happen. So it's important that we look at all of this. And I'm not speaking against capitalism. nor did my grandfather ever speak against capitalism. But we don't want capitalism that leads to greed. We want capitalism that is compassionate capitalism, where we make money, but we share the money with society and with others. What good is it you make $100 billion and sitting in the bank there and doesn't help society in any way? When your own workers are demanding better working conditions and better wages. So if we can't help our own workers who are working for us and helping us make those billions of dollars, then what good is all that effort? We have to have compassionate capitalism. And so now, in conclusion, I'd like to share with you one little secret, and that is, I am sure all of you are aware of Dr. Manoj Jain, who's sitting there. He was Dr. Fauci of Memphis. He brought Memphis out of the virus and helped a lot. And so Manoj and I have decided that we are going to make an effort to have a nonviolence chair at the University of Memphis. So that we can get to young people and you teach them the right ways. So eventually we can have a world of peace and harmony. So, all of these chairs and things need a lot of funding. And I'm hopeful that all of you, whatever little you can share, will contribute to the fund that he's going to raise, and he's going to be responsible for with me as his advisor. And we'll create this chair in Memphis, and maybe Memphis will lead the way. Thank you very much.